Yeah. Yeah. Include. All right. Good afternoon. Let's start all over again. Good afternoon. My name is Simon, team leader, broker, record for the KW office and also the Long Beach coastal office as well. I am here with Mike. Mike is a seasoned experience appraisal and also a licensed real estate agent as well. Mike, how many years have you been practicing?
30
years as a licensed appraiser. So why I have Mike here is to give you a perspective and understanding the eye of an appraiser, right? Because what we as real estate agents see and evaluate homes, it's a lot different than what an appraiser goes out and does, right? They analyze, they do most of the information as we do, right? We go on the multiple listing service and start looking at what we call apples to apples, right? Evaluate, because you cannot compare a home that is 3,000 square feet to a house that's 1,500 square feet, right? It's just not a very comparable property. Now, based on that information, we look at other variables as well. Proximity to the subject property, which usually is about what?
recorded. Cool. It's recorded, so I'll just check it out.
1 second, guys. Please mute yourself. That'll help. Usually Natalie does this for me. So Natalie kind of mute. So
Do you have the permissions to do the mute all button?
I think so. Let me mute everyone, but now. I have to unmute myself.
Nice.
Thank you. So, and again, it's just an understanding of the elements of what we have, right? So what I wanted to do today is really just kind of piggyback from Mike, who has been doing this for 35 years, and do practical scenarios as well. So you get the ins and outs of how to do and analyze a property. So this has been working for the last month and a half, just to kind of get a concrete, concise approach and, you know, evaluating. So Mike, tell us just a little bit of what you look for when evaluating a home.
Well, when we're doing an appraisal, we're looking at the house, seeing what it is. And, you know, in this case, I don't know, what is it, 2,300 feet,
Yeah.
4 bedrooms. So we're going to look for comparables that are similar to that, as similar to that as we can. So, you know, within a range of, say, 2,000 to 2,500 or so. And that's just a general rule. I mean, the neighborhood is going to tell you what kind of range to look for. Say you have that range, it's too narrow, there's no sales that are going to pop up, so you might have to expand it. You might have to expand your neighborhood area from just the major traffic boundaries to a mile, or depending on the neighborhood, even more. So you want to be, but generally you want to be as similar to your subject as possible.
Absolutely. So we used this address here. This is the address that we have, 23306 Iris Avenue in the city of Torrance, 90505 as an illustration. Now, for me, what I do first and foremost when I jump on the MLS, I go right into RPR, which it's easier for me to pop in the address and immediately it gives me some information, okay? How do you get there? It's very simple. Let me admit these people in real quick. So on the MLS, okay, do you guys see RPR right here? It may be a little different for the South Bay. I have Pacific West Association of Realtors. The people for Long Beach are probably pretty familiar in how the format is. But here it is, RPR. So immediately when I'm doing an analysis of a property, I go to this site because there I can immediately put the address and then that'll start the momentum. Because what I'm looking for is, you know, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, square footage, year the home was built, the lot side as well. Okay, that's going to start the foundation of our evaluation. Then we're going to take into consideration, is this property a 2-story or a single family? Has it been upgraded? Does it have a pool? Does it have AC? Does it have a spa? Does it have a chimney? You know, all those we'll take into consideration when we're comparing other properties. Now, for the sake of argument, we use an area that we are familiar with, okay? And then at the end of our session, you'll be able to ask Mike or myself questions of, you know, how to do this and how to do that, okay? So here, if you look, I'll immediately put in the property, right? So I already have it programmed. And that's where you put the address. Immediately, it'll give you a 1-pager of the subject property. Now, it also gives you history, market trends, redefined value, CMA and neighborhoods. I bypass all this because from the eye of an appraiser, as Mike, you know, he goes right into the MLS and starts doing his numbers. That's the difference that we as real estate agents compare to an appraiser. So now I get an idea of what the property looks, right? This property obviously has been on the market before, so it helps us to understand a little bit of backstory, right? Now what I'm looking for is the property summary. The property summary, okay? I'm still not really into the actual opinion of value, right? Because that's just an opinion that the algorithms of the system is populating, but it gives you a gauge. It gives you an understanding where this property may be, right? Anything on this, Mike?
No, that's exactly what we do.
Yeah, exactly. So here are the basic facts about the property. It says it's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 2257 square feet on a 9,100 square lot. It tells me a little bit of the owner. It tells me it's a single family residence. It gives me a price per square foot based on this value up here. Now, I'm taking this into consideration as well when I go deep into my analysis to evaluate and get an opinion of value. Because Mike, if I was to get 3 appraisals out there and 3 agents, do you think that their evaluation is going to be the same?
Nope.
Nope. Yeah. I can get you 3 agents out there as well, and they're going to give you 3 different opinions of value. That's what it really boils down to. Because at the end, it's what the buyer is willing to pay for, right? Because the seller can put the property for whatever amount, right? Does that mean it's going to sell? No, right? But you got to aggressively put the property that you're going to get interest and you're going to get momentum on the property, right? Because that's when the offers start coming in. You overprice the property, you're not going to get the offers. You price it at or just below value, that's when you start seeing momentum. And right now, we're seeing a very unstable uncertainty of a price, right? We're seeing properties stay on the market a little longer. We're seeing price reductions. We're seeing higher incentives of bonus commissions as well. So that tells us that there's a little bit of a shift in the market, right? It doesn't mean that your evaluation is not going to be up to par. It's really doing the calculations and studying the market. And this is why it's crucial and very important. Before you go on a listing appointment or getting a gauge of a property, you want to do your homework, right? Because once you're in front of the seller, that's it. It's game on. Either they're going to give you the opportunity to list the property, or they're not going to give you the opportunity to list the property. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. Let's continue. So now that I have the base information, right? It's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. I'm not really focused on this because, again, I am not sure what's going on in this neighborhood. Remember what I said earlier, apples to apples, right? What we're doing is comparing characteristics of similar properties. So now what I'll do is I'll go into the MLS. Okay. And the MLS is going to provide me, when you go here, you go to search. Then you go into residential, because this is a single family residence. Then we go to CMA. I click here. And now it takes me to the basic information. Okay, basic information. Now what I want to know is, okay, what am I trying to gather? What information do I need in order for me to start doing my analysis? So Mike, what is the first thing that you would do here?
Well, I started looking at the coming soon, active, I check all those boxes on the left.
So coming soon,
Active.
under contract.
Pending, closed.
Okay, close. Now it populates and it defaults to 180 days. So what it's saying from today's date, 180 days back, it's going to populate any properties that have closed. Now, to be conservative, Mike, what's your opinion? Should we leave it at 180 or should we have it more or less?
In today's market, because we had that shift about 4 months ago, I would probably put 120.
Okay. So 120, which means how many months? 4. You said 4. All right, good job. That was an easy math, right? There you go. 120. So 4 months back. All right. This is coming from a licensed appraiser that does these on a regular basis. So what else are we doing now, Mike?
So check off single family residence.
Okay, so we're checking off. If it's a condo, are you checking off single family residence? No. It's an SFR single family. You check that off because remember, we're comparing apples to apples, right? What else, Mike? What else are we doing
We're
here?
in Torrance, so I put in the city of Torrance.
Okay, so we'll put the city of Torrance. We'll type it in. Okay.
Well, bedroom count, probably.
All right, so how many bedrooms is this property?
4.
4 bedrooms, right? So we're gonna put 4 bedrooms.
I would say just to start, you would stick with the bedroom count of the subject and then see where that search takes you. If there's not enough, maybe you want to go 3 to 5, something like that. Same with the square footage.
Okay. So we're good with 4 right now?
Yeah, I would say for now.
Okay. All right, so far we have coming soon, active, under contract, pending, close, 120 days, 4 months back. We're pushing a single family residence in the city of Torrance. Okay. This property is a 4 bedroom. Okay. So now it's telling me that we have 113. 113. I don't know why it's not showing here because because it's condensed, but it shows me that I have 113 matches. So that's, in my opinion, too many properties. We have to adjust this because 100, it's going to give you all these different price
It's taking the
points.
whole city of Torrance right now.
Yeah.
Narrow down our neighborhood.
Well, you answer the question. There you go. Because it's calculating all the information from Torrance, right? So everything that's coming soon, active, under contract, pending, and close is now being populated or generated from the system. So now we still have to condense it a little bit more. What else would you do here, Mike?
Square footage.
Okay. So did everyone see what the square footage of the property was? 2250. Okay. So Mike, in your personal expertise, what would you put here for square footage?
To start, I'd probably go 2,000 to 2,500.
2,000 to 2,500. All right, so now it's telling me 39 matches. A lot better than 113, right? 39 matches is what I got. Okay, is that something that we can utilize or can we condense it a little bit more?
We can condense some more. Going to
Okay.
the map search.
Okay, so from here, we go to map.
I mean, some people can go by zip code, but they're not always populated in the MLS correctly, so I try to keep it broad to start with.
Okay, so it's giving me all these different properties within that square footage. But what we don't have yet is what?
A radius.
We don't have a radius, but what is the number one thing we still don't have? We don't have the address of the subject property. So that's why it's giving you information from south to west to north Torrance. So how do you do that? So one way of doing it is you put in the address where it says jump to address right here. Okay, that's where you're going to put the subject property, where you're going to go on a listing appointment with your 23306 Iris Torrance. Okay. Now it's going to give you where the subject property is located. See right here?
It doesn't look right.
Okay. Yeah,
People into this area.
yeah, I have.
Okay, Sophia said.
Sophia, everyone so far is, I got 31 people on here. Yeah. So for some reason, it's not doing what I need to do. So let me go back and do it this way. So we're going to go to residential, go to CMA. And we're going to go coming soon, active, under contract, pending, closed. We're going to do 120 days. We're going to do single family residence. Here is where I usually put the address. I typically just make it easier because I hate to type. I just highlight the address, copy. And then I paste the address here. And it should populate the address there. You see that? Click on that. Now what it did, it's going to pull any and all information within a mile radius of the subject property. Okay. A mile radius from the subject property. Now you can, and here's some of the things that you have to understand. Because if your property is within, say, Torrance, Redondo Beach, or even Palos Verdes, can you pull information from other cities to use as a comp?
You can,
Okay, you could.
but you have to have a good reason.
There has to be a legitimate reason for it. But for the sake of argument, we're gonna leave it at 1 mile radius. That's usually what a licensed appraiser typically.
That's kind of a falsehood.
Okay,
It's actually, you gotta really know your neighborhoods. Because a mile can take you to all different areas. Like in this case, a mile away was gonna take you into some other parts of Torrance that aren't
Sure.
really similar to Marble Estates where this one is.
right.
So in this case, not always, but in this case, we should probably use the map boundaries and set the boundaries on the map to delineate our specific neighborhood.
Okay, well, let's show them how that works. All right, so here's where the subject property is at, right? You see this red dot? That's where the property is at. What Mike is saying is you can actually use these diagrams up here, okay? We're going to use this one. And the area of the subject property is here, right?
Mhm.
Let me, it's easier for me to do it on this computer. So we click on draw, all around. And then this is what we can do. You see that? I'm going to click Sepulveda. What do you think, Mike? Right here?
Yeah, right there.
Come down. Oh, I just did it the wrong one. Again, that's someone. Let's do this again. So what I'm doing is pinpointing the area because as Mike said, all these neighborhoods can be different in price point. And even just driving, have you ever been in a city and immediately you go to another neighborhood and it's totally different? That can change a lot of the evaluations. So in this case, we're doing the same thing. Let's Next, this thing is going bonkers on me. Here we go again. Let's try this again. So up to Sepulveda, down by 235th.
You can just double click and it should automatically.
There we go. Okay, here. And we're going to remove this one. And
Or you can just go to the center red dot and then delete shape. Oh, not that one, not that one.
which one?
No, get out of there. The other one. Right where it says maple. I'm sorry, marble.
Your subject property, right?
Where your subject is.
Okay.
Yeah, there. And just delete shape.
Bingo.
There we go.
Jeez Louise. Okay. We got this. We got this. All right. So now it populated the properties on a specific area, which is again Sepulveda, 235th Street and Crenshaw. So now we can see, you know, the properties within that area itself. So here, then we can go to results. And now this is when the fun stuff really happens. All right. The magic of doing an evaluation. So Mike, what are some of the things that you'll tweak right here, right now, immediately?
I think we forgot to do the square footage again because it's showing some really small properties there.
Okay, so let's add, what was it, 2,000
Yeah.
to 2,500.
Did you want your bedrooms in there still?
Oh, yeah. 4-bedroom.
I would wait on that for now. Let's see if now. And results.
Yeah, that's a good number.
This looks a little better, right?
Mhm.
Okay. All right, so the first thing that I would do, and Mike, you can probably tell me, I usually go to price, kind of rearrange the prices, right?
Mhm.
So top number can be the high number or the low number. You can just click on here and it'll change it. See that?
I usually keep it that way.
Low too high,
Yeah.
low too high. So 1,194,000 and then 1.760, right?
Also, I go to status and hit that S on the top there.
Right here.
That'll put all our actives and pendings on the top.
Okay.
So
Did you see what I just did? I just click here and it changes everything from available, pending, and then sold. Okay. Okay. All properties on City of Torrance. This is area 127 as an example and illustration. And then here's the price. What do you do from here, Mike?
Well, first of all, I would know what my subject looks like. Well,
Okay.
after interviewing
Yeah.
the owner or the agent or whoever. And then compare that, what I know about the subject to what I'm seeing here.
Okay.
That's going to tell me.
So let me just add this. Remember, you haven't seen this property from the inside, right? What is one of the things that you can do to do a little bit of research of the property? Look at the history if that property ever was on the MLS. That'll give you an indicator. It will give you some photos of the inside, but it will also give you some comparisons as well. So what we can do from here is, now that I have this information on hand, I can leave this because we're going to come back. Now I want to get a little bit more information of the subject property. Remember, the photos that we saw earlier give you a good indicator, but I'm going to use the MLS as a process to see if this property was ever on the MLS. What did it start on price? How many times it's been sold? And that kind of gives us a gauge and an understanding to ultimately gauge a value on it. Does that make sense? Okay. So Mike, what do we do here? We go back to search.
Yep, search address.
Go to search, residential. And then we put address, right?
Mhm.
Here we're going to put the address of 23306 Iris. Okay, it's telling me that there's 4 matches. I know it's hard to see it here. So there you go. This is the subject property you're going on the listing right now, on the listing appointment, right? 23306, 23306, so on and so forth. It was sold, it was canceled. But interesting facts here, okay? What do you see that's interesting about this?
Did they use a K or the word
Yeah, that's true. That's different. They use a K instead of a C. Yes. Okay. But it tells you that at one point it was listed at 720. Then 1115, 1135, 1160. So what are some of the indicators that I'm trying to gather here, Mike?
Well, yeah, price, and then on the far left where you can't see, there's also the dates that this is on the market.
There you go.
And it also looks like there may have been an addition because it says 1933 for the square feet, square footage,
Okay.
and 5 bedrooms. So I don't know what happened there.
Yeah. So it looks like in November 4th of 2008, it was listed at that 720 price point. 2019, 20, and 20. Okay. 129 days on the market, 68, 20, 18 days on the market. So you can kind of follow a trend of what's going on here. So what I like, and probably Mike also likes, is we want to see photos of how the property looked back in 2008. These are photos from 08. What am I looking for here? Anyone? Upgrades, yeah. Absolutely.
Or lack of upgrades in this case.
Okay, there's only 7 photos. This was back in 2008. I put in the address. And then I searched, and that's how I was able to populate the, yeah, 4.
Well, I have a 4, so you click on the.
So then I scrolled all the way to the right, and then I went to images here.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So again, that one was sold for 720 back in 2008. And I'm going to go to the next one on October 22nd, 2019. The picture's a little nicer, right? I'm going to show you, Kimberly, right now the photos from 2020. You're jumping the gun. But here's the photos from 2019. What do you see? What do you see, Mike?
I see some upgraded flooring,
Yeah.
possibly paint.
Still, you know, a little dated, has the popcorn ceiling, right? But is it in moving condition? Yeah, still in moving condition. But this is now running in my head is how I'm going to plant the seed, and ultimately how I'm going to have that conversation with the seller, right? Because I don't know if the home still looks this way. Remember, this was in 2019. We're in 2022. We don't know if the owner or the previous owners have done any upgrades. This is why I'm doing a little bit of history search, right? Because I want to see how the property looked at one time and gauge it, so that way when I'm giving a concise evaluation, I know how to have that conversation with the seller. All right. Now let's go to 2020, June 17, 2020. Interesting.
What's the same?
It looks the same, right? The furniture looks the same. So what does that tell me? No, that tells me that they probably had it with one company and another company. Does that make sense? All this information is very crucial, very important to understand. Because again, if you're going to have that conversation, you want to know where you stand. Because we're not in the babysitting industry, right? We're not here to babysit homes. We're here to sell homes, right? The bathroom looks a little dated, right? From maybe the 80s. Still have the popcorn ceiling up here, right?
Carpet looks a little soiled.
Yeah, carpet doesn't look up to par. So these are all running in my head, right? That also runs on an appraisal too when they're giving the evaluation. Now let's go to the final one, which was September 2nd, 2020. That was the last time this property had been on the market, okay? And that got canceled. Oops, what happened here? All right. So, where do we go? So September 20, right here. Hey, looks like the same property, right? Same photo. Yeah. Again, I'm just trying to get a understanding of the history of this property, but more so it helps me as well to determine, specific language that I'm going to be utilizing for the sake of putting it. If they give me the opportunity to list this home, I'm going to try to get a lot of the information from all the agents that put information on the description. Why? Because they've already walked the property. They already know a little bit of it. I'm just going to cut and paste a lot of the stuff. Now, some like to type, some are very good at doing it, but I like to go the easy way, and the fast approach is get information from other agents and then just put it all together. So now that I have this information, yeah, that's a lot of popcorn. Thank you very much, Kimberly. You're absolutely correct on that.
I would also check the full listings and the agent comments as well.
Yeah. So now we'll go back, and then I do with Mike was saying, I go individually, and then I look at information. They had it listed at 745 and eventually sold for 720. Now, bear in mind, this is back in 2008. What happened in 2008? The recession, right? Yeah. They were lucky. Yeah, right here, 2008. It was in the beginning stages when they listed the property, because ultimately, let's see, it closed in November. That's when it started really plummeting down. So they actually sold, just before the meltdown happened, because even though they listed it for 745, they were still able to sell it for 720. Now we cannot use that as a comparable because that was 15 years ago, right? But it gives you a good indicator of where this property has. Now I'll go back. Let's see here. I'm going to go and see the other properties.
Oh, Simon, real quick, I would also check the tax rolls on that.
Yeah, I would definitely. So now let's go to this one here. There's a little bit more information. This one was listed at $1,115,000, but it got canceled. See that right here? It got canceled. Why it got canceled? We don't know. What's a good indicator is how long it's been on the market. So it's telling me that it got canceled after 68 days on market. you can click on the days on market and it'll tell you, some history. It'll tell you that originally on August 11th, it was listed for 1,165,000 and eventually did some modifications throughout the time of that 68 days, right? Because ultimately by October 2022, 19, they have reduced the price from 165 back in September down to 1,115,000. Okay. And eventually it was placed on, it was active. They did a modification on commission, then it was placed on hold, then it got back to active, then they did some price adjustment, then it went into withdrawal, then it became a cancel listing. It gives you a little bit of history. Why is this important for you to know? Because this is the seller talking. This is the seller giving you indicators. Okay, is it a serious seller or not a serious seller if we're doing a lot of movements? And it can be a combination of both agents as well. It's a great parameter to see. Let's go to the next one. And see what we have here. This one was listed at 1,135,000. Again, got canceled. This one only lasted 20 days on the market. Okay, 20 days. So it started at 165. It for some reason went canceled, and then it went under contract. Then they reduced the commission from 2.5 to 2%. Then it went available. Then they did a modification from 165 to 135. Then it went on withdrawal, and then eventually on June 17, 2020, it went cancel. And it looks like it's the same agent, right? The same agent. Interesting facts, right? And very interesting.
But the top one was a different agent.
Did it?
Yeah, it was the very, very top one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's weird. Okay. Yeah, it's a little strange there. Good eye, Tanya.
Oh, thank you, sir.
All right, so let's go to the next one. Okay, and this is the last one. It was at 1,160,000, 18 days on the market. Canceled, did a modification of 2.5. They reduced it from 2.5 to 2%. Then it went available. Then it went on hold. Then it went under contract. Then on August 24th, it went available again. Now they did a correction because this is currently wrong. 11 million. Okay, you see the patterns? So from 1 million, it went up to 11 million in August of 2024. Then you're absolutely, that's a significant error. That's gonna cancel you out. Yeah, from 1 million down to it probably was supposed to be 1,160,000, but they have it as 11 million.
Yeah.
And then they realize, oh shoot, we've got to place it on hold. We have to withdraw it. And then they adjusted it from 11,600,000 to 1,160,000, and then it eventually became a canceled listing. Interesting facts, right?
Still with a different agent on top of that. Look at the interesting.
Yeah, it might have been another agent within the same office.
Yeah.
But it's just good information to know. Then you can go back to recent search, and I'm going to go back to the original 9 listings that we originally started, right? So now what we're looking for here is the comparables. Now you're getting ready to analyze what your opinion of the subject property, right? Even though we saw history of it, now it gives us, okay, a good indicator of the seller's personality maybe, and decision-making. So how do you prepare now to go on the listing appointment, right? It's crucial and very important. Now we're gonna look at the elements of what we have here. This is activity, active, pending, and sold. Now, in the eyes of Mike, do you utilize active as a good indicator for you to evaluate a home?
I take a look at it, but it may not always be a good indicator.
Okay,
It's just an idea of what somebody's asking for, but all of those are kind of basically clues as to what's going on. Even the pendings. Typically, on pendings, I will call the agent to find out what it's in escrow for. That's going to be key. Because that'll tell you what's going on right now.
yeah,
You, if you don't mind me piping in for just
Sure.
a second, you gave me some of the best advice I thought, because it was something that hadn't even crossed my mind. I had been taught how to do the CMAs and was doing pending and doing sold, but was not looking at active because I figured, well, that doesn't make it a difference for me. And when we were looking to do a price reduction, you told me, we looked at them before we were going to send a new CMA for the price reduction to have that conversation with our client. And we looked at active and there was something that opened 3 doors down that morning. And so we decided to hold on a price reduction because that would generate more traffic to our listing. And so that was a really big aha for me that day when I was like, oh, okay, look at active too.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a very good point, and I remember having that conversation with you,
it
Cheyenne.
was a very good.
Because that'll put the brakes and see, because if another property comes on the market, right, then it's a good indicator if you need to tweak or hold off and see what happens. Because if another property within the same street comes up as an active listing, then that'll tell us, okay, that's a new listing, there's going to be activity. Let's wait and see what happens. So now you're just kind of on a standby to see what ultimately happens. Does it go into contract or not? And what ended up happening with that listing? There was
We continued price dropping with each other, essentially competing with each other for price reductions.
yeah.
Yeah.
But what was the end result to that property?
Once we went into escrow, I'm not sure, it went off the market for a little bit, but then it came back on, so I'm not sure after it came back on where we're
Yeah.
at. I should look at it.
Yeah, because there was a point where it got
They
canceled,
just
right?
canceled it, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, so they didn't want to compete with us.
Mm.
What else? But now here we are. We're looking at active, pending, and then sold. Now, these are great indicators to determine evaluation is because this is the price and the consideration that the buyer was willing to go through the whole entire process and close and report officially, right? These are great indicators for us. Now, how do we determine, where we should be as part of our process, right? Now, we're going to be looking at numbers, right? So 1,000,004, 1,194, 1,004, 1,425, 1,005, 15, 1523, 1650, 1760, right? That's a lot of information. So yeah, absolutely. We're always going to look at all parameters, but we're going to really focus on the sold properties because these are the ones that obviously have officially closed. Now, we also look at parameters of bedrooms and amenities, right? As we shared earlier, right, Mike? Now, if the property is a 4-bedroom, is a 5-bedroom a comparable property?
Could be if you don't have anything else to compare to.
Right. Absolutely. What's your take on this, Mike?
Absolutely. I mean, you got to know your neighborhood because a lot of these plans, even though they say they're 4 bedrooms, they're 4 and a den.
Yeah.
Or the original builder, had a den and it could have been a 5th bedroom option. So all that's missing is a closet in that same floor plan. So we just don't know. But it's a great indicator though still.
Yeah.
That's exactly what my listing was. Like spot on.
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking also on years, right? That's a great indicator. Is a home that sold in the 60s, right? Built 60s, comparable to a home that was built in 2022. Why?
Because it's probably different structure on the interior.
Wear and tear, right?
Electricity is.
Well, everything is not a lot newer, right? Like, and I use vehicles as an example, right? But let's get your take on this. On like homes that are built in the 60s, right? And then you see a home that was built in 2022, as an example, new construction. Can you use that as an indicator and a gauge?
Maybe. In the case of the MLS, sometimes a remodeled house the agent will put in the effective age in the year built section. So what you do is you look at the tax records and you see when it was actually built. I see that a lot, surprisingly, but I wouldn't throw it out immediately. I'd just take a look, investigate it.
Right.
And,
How would you compare something that was built in the sixties but was fairly newly renovated, though foundationally it may not be
still got the same bones, yeah.
right?
Very good point. Yeah. So we're looking at square footage, we're looking at amenities, bedrooms, bathrooms, year was built, lot size too. Okay. These are strong indicators too, because the desirability, right, of things like having a swimming pool, a backyard, an ADU, all those are great indicators when you have a larger lot, right? And that lot doesn't necessarily mean that because it's 7,000 or 6,000, it's all usable, right? So that's why you have to do a little bit of research, understand the neighborhood, and that gives you a perspective of where you need to be. You're also looking at DOM. Okay, what does DOM stand for? Days on market. Yeah. And then CDOM is a cumulative days on market, right? Right, Mike? And those are, again, great indicators, because when you see the numbers even, right, 25 and 25, they haven't done any adjustments to it. But when you'll see 36 and then 126 days, what does that tell you?
That they went on the market, then took it off to maybe do renovations or something, and then put it back on.
Yeah. Yeah. Usually holds withdrawals, they cancel it. So the cancellation, how it works is, in order for this to go back to 0, accumulative days on market and also days on market, you have to wait 91 days. 91 days before it officially resets, and it'll say 0. Because if you think that you cancel it today and then put it back again active tomorrow, it's going to show 1 day. But it's also going to show cumulative days, which is the 45 days that you thought you were clever that you were going to raise, but it's not. A smart appraiser or an agent is going to know, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't jive here. Something's up. So why did they take it off the market and put it back on the market? Okay. So these are, again, avenues in how you have to think in order to analyze a property.
What I do, Simon, is I click on the second number.
Here?
Yep, that usually shows everything. Well, maybe not in this case, but
Yeah, because this one.
yeah.
There's a discrepancy. Yeah. And that'll tell you where the discrepancies is. Usually agent errors, or the agent cancel it, put it back on the market. You want to know all this information. Why? Is because when you're in front of the seller, you need to know the area, right? You need to understand what's going on in the area, because the seller is probably very in tune to the neighborhood. They probably lived there 10, 15, 20 years. They probably know more than us. They know the history, right? They know a lot of the things. They can tell you more stuff about the neighborhood than you studying just the multiple listing service, right? So again, great indicators. So what else are we looking for, Mike?
of course, the dates, but we already put that in there. They're all fairly recent. But I'm looking at price at this point because we have a pretty decent range. So knowing what we know about the subject, if it doesn't have a lot of upgrades, I would normally be willing to bet that the bottom couple of 2 or 3 listings there, the 1.5 and below or something like that, are probably upgraded as opposed to the 1.4.
Mm-hmm. So let's look at that and see. So this one is $1,194,000, right? Let's look at the condition of this home. So all you do is scroll here, go right into the image, click on that, and that's going to tell you, one, it's a single family home, right? It's not a 2-story. So it's a corner property. What am I looking for? Just looking, what's that?
Upgrades.
They're looking for upgrades, yeah. Condition of the home. All these are avenues that we need to consider when evaluating a home. All right, let's go to the next one and get an indicator here. So this one here. Now this one's a 2-story home. Now, Mike, in your personal opinion, I mean, can you use a comp? If your house is a one level, can you use a 2-level home?
I only do that if I don't have another or enough 2-level homes. If my subject is a 2-level, I'll try to stick with that. If you can't, you can't. And then also the market's gonna tell you if there is a difference between 1 story and 2 stories, because some people do have a preference. A lot of people will either just not want a 2-story house, so, you know, there may not be a price differential.
How red carpet, does that do anything for you?
What is that?
Maybe it's sassy for you, I said, how about red carpet, does that do anything?
Oh, okay.
It's lack of,
That kind of reminds me of the 70s.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
I happen to know about this house here.
yeah, that room's cool though,
it has its uniqueness to it,
that room's sweet, you read this, that's
but would you consider this updated? No, not at all, right?
The buyer pool on this one's gonna be very limited. If that's what they like. Otherwise, it's probably gonna be rehab.
Yeah, most likely. Let's look at the next one. All right. Semi upgraded. Original floors. Popcorn film, very popular, right? I don't know. Old school heater, fireplace. Carpet. Yeah, a little dated, in my opinion. Let's go to the next one. All right. Double door entry. Hardwood floors. Looks like it might be staged. Kitchens look upgraded.
Simon, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
So the one we looked at like 2 homes ago was very style specific and kind of cool. Is there, do you build that into, yes, this one, do you build that into the price at all? Or are you just like, no, this needs updates and you don't build that into the price?
Mike, what's your take?
We would have a very specific buyer in general that would, you know, probably like this sort of thing. But in terms of the overall market, people tend towards the modern, more updated look, especially in the kitchen and bathrooms.
Okay,
So I would be looking in terms of, you know, what your typical buyer is looking for.
okay. Thank you very much. Excellent answer.
Okay, well, let's look at now something that's sold at 1.7. Let's see how that looks. Okay, it's a 2-story home. Very modern kitchen. What do you think, Mike?
Looks good. It's got all the upgrades, flooring, recessed lighting, scraped ceilings, shutters. Completely modern kitchen. Totally not like ours.
Wait, did I just see 3?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What the heck? 2 washers maybe? And 1 dryer? Yeah, you can see the plumbing right here. Plumbing here, plumbing here. They must have a big family.
It's got a few
That's-
upgrades.
That might be a feature that someone will just buy because of that. But it gives you again indicators, right? And this one sold for 1.7 million. 2-story home, upgraded kitchen. Okay. We'll do one more. And we'll do the one for 1.6. One point six.
A lot of landscaping upgrades.
Very expensive kitchen. Yeah. And this one sold for 1.6. Okay. So you guys remember the property, the subject property, how it looked, right? So if we were to determine, and this one I think has a swimming pool, is that a swimming pool back there? As a barbecue island, very nicely landscaped in the back, even though it's small, it still has an amenity that some may find it appealing, right? Yeah. Corner lot, just in this right here, they spend a lot of money. All this here, all the brick. And this one sold for 1.6. Now the indicators for me is looking at these numbers too, right? Why is that important, Mike?
Well, you want to stick with most recent dates, obviously. There's a couple in August. So about as recent as you're gonna get in this case, so. That is important, especially in this market.
Yeah. Yeah, because it'll tell you big indicators. If you see big numbers here, something is going on. It's either overpriced, the house maybe not appealing, maybe it's not in moving condition, maybe it's a little clutter. Whereas, you know, this property for 1.6, right, with the swimming pool, look, 8 days on market, bam, they were in escrow closed. Okay, supply and demand, and that was in June of this year, when the market being the way it is. Now we have another property, 1 day on the market. Okay, what does that tell you, Mike?
It's pretty hot.
Yeah.
They already had someone in mind.
There you go. They probably was off market and already found the buyer and open escrow and close escrow. So they went immediately into pending. And that happens too, especially when you have it as coming soon, right? Or you're not promoting it, the seller says, wait to actively put it on the multiple listing service and then just wait. And then immediately you get someone coming in, I got cash, I'll close in 15 days, no contingencies, take it off the market. And if the seller said yes to that, then, you know, unfortunately, it's off the market. And that one, 1.53. Now, what are the arrows indicate, Mike?
Well, whether or not there was a price reduction, I guess, in the red and the way around,
If you don't see an arrow, what does that mean?
that's the price.
That's the price, yeah. So if you see an up arrow, that means the list price, they went up on the property.
It's interesting to me that there's so many price increases on this one. Can you divulge on that a little bit more, why you would see so many price increases?
Are you talking about the arrows right here? Yeah, we can definitely check. Let's do this one right
Or is
here.
that just saying that it closed
No,
prior to it was listed for?
So that's sold. So that's sold. Let's look at the,
Okay,
Yeah.
it's just that it closed higher than it was listed.
so the arrow indicates that they listed the property at 1.325 and it officially recorded and closed at 1.425.
Got it.
When you see an arrow down, then that tells you they listed, but ultimately closed at a price less than what the actual listing price was.
Interesting.
Well, let's do a little bit of history. Yeah, because that's typically what
Right.
1.499, but they closed. It must be an error here.
Check the tax records because the close price doesn't always.
Yeah, so here's another thing that I recommend that you do is go to Realist as well, right? Realist. So let's go and see. look at the history here. So its original listing price was 1.6. And then eventually it looks like it closed either 1.4 or 1.5. Why it had the arrow face down is based on this. Because the original listing price, we didn't do a history search on it, but here you go. Here's the indicator.
That's the one moment that I had when I asked the question, is because I was
Yeah.
thinking they were price reductions versus price increases, but obviously it was the closed versus, yeah, anyway.
Oh, these are great questions. Really good questions.
Sorry if anyone's blocked it. I didn't think that that's
All right. Oh, going back here, let's go back to the 9. All right, so now that you have this information, now our job is to analyze what we consider an opinion of value, right? Now, you still, in your head, you're gonna kind of understand, okay, I know where I need to list the property based on these criterias, right? But we still haven't physically seen the property, so you still need to go there and look at it. Because even the history of the old MLS doesn't mean that the seller in the last 6 months didn't do any renovations to the property. What you think looks, it may be totally different, right? So now that'll give you a gauge if you need to be in the 1.11 or the 1.7, right? That's the range. Okay. Now, as I said earlier, you can put the property at whatever you want. You can put it at $10 million, just like that one for 11 million, right? Is it going to sell, really? The answer is probably not. You want to be very competitive and aggressive, especially right now, right, Mike? Because that's going to tell you if this property is going to sell, and it's going to sell for the fair amount of value that the neighborhood has. Because again, you're looking at all those parameters, year it was built, how many bedrooms, square footage, all that you take into consideration, right? And now give the seller an opinion of value. Now, based on this information, yes, Cheyenne.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay, please.
As from an appraiser standpoint, are you always doing these online comps before you visit the property?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, physically. Okay.
Absolutely.
I didn't know which is a better for your timing. If you see it first and then do this so that you have a better idea.
Yeah, I do this. I do exactly what Simon's doing.
Okay.
I look at all of that before I ever go out there. And as an appraiser, I would say if you as an agent
Mhm,
are going to be furnishing the appraiser with comps,
mhm.
I would suggest that you do it either before they get out there or at the time they get out there.
Okay.
One of our big pet peeves is, can I send you the comps later?
Yeah.
When we're already out of the neighborhood, gone to the next.
Yeah.
You know,
So that's that leads to this, and then we'll go real quick on this. You know, as a licensed appraiser, you know, what are your biggest frustrations when you're dealing with either sellers or agents trying to give you, you know, comps here?
It's I have to say that I'm talking to, I guess, a lot of you guys, it's been a lot better lately over the past 5 or 10 years. Agents usually know their neighborhoods, know the comps, know the good comps, know what a true comparable is. That's important. As opposed to somebody that's just trying to steer your comparables to whatever purchase price they may have. And so you get these comparables that are really not comparables, they're just sales that happen to support what they think it's worth. So that's one of my biggest pet peeves, I guess, but we could have a whole course on that.
Yeah, I mean, your job and your number one responsibility is to provide concrete information to the lender who is going to be lending on this particular client, right? So, and I know that you have to kind of gauge, but ultimately, as a licensed appraiser, you know, you want to get a feel for it, not just shove, you know, get a dialogue and a conversation. Because again, if you're uncertain that it's going to appraise, then this is the resources that you need in order for him to, you know, see what other stuff, because even appraisals may miss something that you may have. Okay. I go on Realist too. And the reason I go to Realist is because a lot of the stuff that doesn't show up on the MLS will show up as a sold property. And the only way we find that information is on Realist because those are county recorded. Okay. Because someone can, as a consumer, as seller, I can sell it to any of you. Never have to use a real estate agent. I can have the escrow, I have the title, and I have a buyer that's ready, willing, and able to buy. We can go right into escrow with the terms and conditions. Never have to put it on the MLS. Look at how many for sale by owners, right? They're trying to avoid of using a real estate professional because they're trying to avoid paying a commission. And we'll see properties that do sell off market. How do you utilize that information? Well, very simple. You go back onto the MLS, okay? And then you go to Realist right here. See this? Click here. And this is straight from the county recorder's information because Realist uses and pulls the stuff that title companies use. Right here, I'm going to put in the address 23306 Iris Street, Torrance. Hopefully it'll populate. There you go. This is the property, 2306 Iris Avenue, APN number. Okay, characteristics, the owner's information, location, tax information, characteristics, and a lot of this information you use to input it into the multiple listing service too. So it goes hand on hand. But where I'm going is comparables. You see this right here? Comparables. Now here you kind of have to play with it, but it'll give you an indicator. And that indicate, well, it's hard here for some reason. It's not giving me the medium. And it's maybe because I'm utilizing it as a screenshot. But it's not allowing me to see the medium, but it sees since the high and the low, the high was 1425. There's really not much here that shows, but this one in Santa Fe Avenue in Torrance, that one's an old recording, so it doesn't look like there's anything that was sold off market. Everything was probably sold within a real estate professional. That's what I see here. Okay, but that's another indicator where you can utilize is Realist to get evaluations as well. Any questions?
Yeah, Simon, is everything on Realist properties that are off market?
No.
I mean, are not on the MLS, I mean?
Some are and some are not. Most of the stuff that comes out on Realist usually had sold on the MLS by a real estate agent. But you may have one or two addresses that can tell you a big picture because it was not sold by a real estate agent and it may be within the subject property. And that may tell you if the property is sold because it'll tell you the same characteristics, right? As it shows you on the MLS. But that might be a good indicator because what if that property is around the corner and it's sold for 1.5 and you're thinking of listing it for 1.50, 1.450, right? 1,450,000. But there was a good comparable that sold right across the property or in the corner that never went on the MLS, but that one sold for 1.5 in the last 90 days. Then I can use that as a comparable to analyze and give the seller more evaluation on that. That's why I bounce from the MLS and Realist to get concrete information. But we heavily utilize the MLS to gather most of the intel and information. Right, Mike? Yep.
Absolutely.
So, cool. All right, so what other issues do you see that you don't like agents to provide, or, you know, your frustrations, I guess, when they're following you and asking you types of questions, right?
Well, that's just me personally. I prefer to be left alone and do my thing, but no, I enjoy good conversation as well. So it's not a big deal one way or another. But the thing I appreciate more is honesty. You know, if they put that thing in escrow and they know it's high, you know, be honest about it. Don't try to, you know, pull the wool over my eyes or something like that. You know, that's never fun. Just be honest about it. Just say, hey, I think we're a little bit high, but here's the comps I do have, and this is why I think we're okay, because we have such and such upgrades and things of that nature. So I appreciate the honesty, and you know, it just works out better for everybody.
Right. Good deal. Any other questions for Mike? Yes.
I just want to ask in general, when you're searching for the results, we ended up at originally with 100 whatever, and then 40 something, now at 9. What is like a good average number? You know, I end up with 10-ish or something. I don't know, or is that even a factor?
It's
It is a
it is and
factor.
it isn't, but the number is whatever it takes for you to be comfortable with coming up with a number.
Right. Okay.
You know.
Yeah, I think when you have more than 20,
Okay.
I don't think you need that many. Because then it throws you off, then you're gonna be questioning yourself, where should I put this listing at, right? This is why you wanna have a very tight CMA, because that'll give you a more concise that property will sell. Now, at the end of the day, the seller chooses to either list the property at that price, or may have suggestions. Well, I know that the property next door, or, you know, on the corner sold for X, Y, and Z, right? You can do a little bit of research, because they may know something that you as a professional may not know. The appraisal doesn't come in until the property is in escrow, and then they get hired by the lender. That's when they come in. This conversation is even before you list the property. And sometimes the market is funky. You may start at this price, and before you know it, you're $200,000-300,000 less than what you listed the property. And again, if the buyer and the seller agree to those terms, then it's perfectly fine. But you don't want to be that agent that's chasing the market either, because that's not good. Because what's going to happen, just like we saw in that listing, you're eventually going to get that listing canceled, because they're not going to see the value on your ability to sell the property. This is why it's best to be realistic in the very beginning and have that hard conversation with the seller, because your goal is to sell the property at the highest possible price with the least amount of headaches to net them the most, right? But we're not the ones buying the property. It's the buyer, and the buyers are really the ones dictating what they're willing to pay, because you can go in escrow at, you know, $1.2 million or $1.3 million. Buyers going to do their due diligence and investigate the property, and after investing, you know, money and inspections, they may conclude that what they offer may not be something that they're comfortable. They may want to have you do any repairs, give credit, or a price reduction. I've been guilty. I've been in situations like that. Well, I go high, lock in the escrow, and then I start the negotiations for myself or my clients, and then hardball to try to get a lower price. Again, if the seller is willing, then we continue. If the seller is not willing, the buyer needs to make a decision if they want to continue or change, you know, their terms or back out of the deal. And any of those is perfectly fine. What we're trying to accomplish here is when you represent the seller, right? And what the seller is willing to sell the property for. And the seller's mind may be different than what the opinion of the agent or the opinion of an appraiser. But they're gonna base, the information that you gather, because you're using concrete information. You're just not pulling a number out of your head saying, I think we should list it at 1.8. No, how do you back it up? You back it up with data. The data is your friend, right, Al? This is how you determine where you need to start. You want to start at or just below market value. Because if you go below market value, then you're probably going to get more hits, more activity, more showings, and obviously more offers. Because the point of what you're trying to accomplish is to be able to get the buyer up enough where the seller is willing to sell. Because even if you start at 500,000 as an example, right, to list it, and you know the home is worth $1 million, the seller doesn't have to sell at 500 if that's the only offer that comes in. Now the buyer's going to be pissed off, but it doesn't matter because it's what the seller is willing to release and relinquish the property. Does that make sense? Okay. Any other questions?
Hi, Simon. I
Hi.
have one question.
Yes.
How would you handle pricing a listing that has a high HOA fee?
Okay, so the question is, how do you handle a property that has a high HOA fee? Again, comparable is the same component.
It's the same thing. I mean, you gotta probably take comps that are in the same neighborhood or the same complex or development. You're all gonna have pretty much the same association fees anyway. So it shouldn't make a difference unless you have some other complex in the neighborhood that does have a lower fee. It's all gonna be in what the buyer is willing to pay in the end.
Absolutely. And this also works too. I hope that kind of answers your question. Look at other comparable properties. If there are HOAs that are a lot less, are they selling for more or are they selling for less? And that'll be a good indicator for you of where you need to price the condo or the townhome.
Copy that. That answers my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Another side note that I wanted, and then we'll cut loose, is also when you list a property and the property's not selling, you want to check the MLS on a regular basis, right? Because as Cheyenne said earlier, there might be something that pops up. A sold that someone just put entry only, or a new listing that comes on the market in that same subject area. So you want to constantly be checking the MLS. If it's not every day, at least once a week, because there's a lot of activities that will gauge and ultimately tell you where you need to be or where you should get a proposed offer. So check the MLS as well, right, Mike?
Absolutely.
Cool. All right, any other questions? This is the final one. So based on what we have as an indicator, what would you list the property that we ran a comp on, Mike? And I'm going to give you my perspective of it.
Probably somewhere in the 1.450, somewhere around there.
Okay. 1.450. Okay. We saw how the condition of the property, it still had popcorn ceilings, right? We're going to think that the property is that, but that's a good starting point. I would be around 1.425, 1.450 as well. Just based on that. List the property and then hope that we get that baby sold, right? Yeah. So any questions regarding how to utilize the multiple listing service, analyzing properties, and you can always reach out to us as well. We're here to help and support you. And I've done that numerous of times. Where's Tina? Oh, she's on the phone. Tina comes to me every time she goes on a listing appointment. Hey, I just need a second eyes. You run a quick comp on me. And then I'll tell her the truth. I said, well, based on what I see here, I think you need to start at this. And she listens. So cool. Any other questions?
Simon,
Yes.
Chris, in the beginning, when you were looking at the properties and you were looking at different properties to place in the comp. You mentioned the square footage and you came up with a number of, I think it was 2,000 to 2,500, something like that. What's the sweet spot in terms of the percentage of plus or minus that you should look for? 10%, 15%, 20%, what?
That's,
That's
yeah, I think we kind of talked about that and alluded to it a little bit earlier. It's gonna be whatever it takes to get a decent amount of sales to make a decision. So there's no real cut and dry rule for that.
Okay.
Whatever it takes to, pare down the data.
And just to add to that, Mike, I play with the MLS, and it may take me a little longer, but as long as I'm comfortable in how I'm going to articulate the conversation with the seller, then I'll spend 45, sometimes an hour just analyzing, playing with the numbers, right? Until I see where I'm comfortable with that price. If that means putting a range between, if the property is 2,300, I usually go 2,000 to 25. If the property is 3,200, again, 3,000 to 35 as a range. If the property is 1,500, then I try to keep it within the range of 1,250 to maybe 1,750 square feet, just so I can get a buffer. And then I'll play with the bedrooms, because sometimes what I'll do, if it's a 4-bedroom property, right? I may want to check for properties that have 3 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 1, because they're probably selling for about the same or less. I wouldn't do 5, because if the property doesn't have a 5-bedroom, but I'll do 4 or less and see what populate. Because if you only get 1 or 0, then you gotta play with the system, kind of manipulate it a little bit in order to get a concise opinion of value, right?
Exactly.
That gives you a good indicator in when you're having the conversation with the seller, because data is not going to lie to you, because you're going to see this in front of your clients. And here's the active, here's the under contracts, here's the pennies, and here is the properties that sold in the last 92 4 months. Okay, hope that kind of answers your question. Any
Yes,
other questions? Thank you. Cool. All right, well, that concludes our class. Mike, thank you very much. I really appreciate you. This is awesome, and we will definitely see you on the next training. Thank you.